critically important. I'm actually uh, uh, talking to you from Phoenix, Arizona. I flew in here this morning, had to get up at 3 a.m., and I've got a red eye flight later because I've got to be back in DC for some meetings down on Capitol Hill tomorrow. So we're on kind of a crazy schedule here. But let's dive in and just talk about some of the things that are happening so that you have good information. You are, during the course of this, you can do one of three things. You can put something in the chat. First, you can ask in the Q&A section, just ask a question. And then when we're done with the presentation, you can raise your hand and I'll try to recognize you if you want to speak. So that's just the administrative part of it. First, for those of you who have not seen it, Congressman Bilirakis from Florida filed a bill that will be heard tomorrow afternoon down on Capitol Hill to ban 7-OH. It was really an interesting thing that he did because he represents the state where one of the major 7-OH manufacturers is there. It operates out of Florida and has spread out so much money in the Florida legislature that it's hard to figure out how deep those contributions go and how much influence that they obviously have in this process. But it's just the fact that we have to deal with along the way. But it it will be heard tomorrow along with a number of other substances that are of concern to the Congress, and we'll see how the committee decides to proceed in terms of dealing with each one of these bills. But obviously, a bill that would take over the scheduling process, and Congress has the power to do this and has done it from the DEA. They certainly can do it much faster. But the case that Congressman Bilirakis is making is spot on because 7-OH is dangerous. It is an opioid. It has been appropriately characterized by the FDA and Commissioner McCary. So I think that's a very important part of the communication and the education that we're doing about 7-OH. Now, the 7-OH people will come in hard, and I expect that they will launch a very aggressive lobbying campaign. And we're seeing some of their tactics now play out in the states, and we're going to talk about those in a couple of minutes. But I think they'll be replicated at the federal level. We are at DEFCON 1 on all of these issues because of the emergence of 7-OH, their insistence that they want to have a piece of the marketplace. They really don't care much about following the traditional scientific protocols. They just think they're entitled because they've been on the market for 2.5 years now, and they think that gives them some kind of a basis to continue to be on the market, even though the claims that they make are just patently absurd. But it's life in the world that we live in. But the 7-OH bill will fan the flames of the anti-kratom people, and they're going to come in hard, and that we potentially could see amendments that would schedule all kratom to the Bilirakis bill. So we're going to have to be very diligent in following all this. And the second part of this federal strategy, one that was obviously initiated by the anti-kratom people, is the 11 senators who sent a letter to Commissioner McCary encouraging the FDA that they should ban all kratom to expand the 7-OH recommendation for scheduling to all kratom products. And this is led by a coalition of nonprofit groups that are starting to get better organized, and they are now sort of flexing their muscles. And they convinced Senator Ricketts from Nebraska to take the lead on sending this letter. And their expectation, and in fact, one of their leaders of these groups were claiming that they have a commitment that Senator Ricketts will file a bill to ban all kratom. So we're going to watch for that. Part of what our strategy is on dealing with this is to provide Senator Ricketts and the other 10 members of the Senate with information that will inform them about the mistake that would be made based on the science and the evidence, because ultimately it comes down to whether or not the 8 factors of the requirements under the Controlled Substances Act have been met. And if they've been met, then the Congress could do something to say, well, the DEA isn't acting on the information that's available to them. But you don't put the cart before the horse. You do not just act on banning. And certainly we know that the science does not justify, under the 8 factors of the Controlled Substances Act, any kind of scheduling. And the FDA has acknowledged that. The FDA human dose finding study confirms it. They simply can't meet that burden. So what we've done is that we've deployed our federal lobbyists to go and talk to all of those members, but that knowing that you know we're in this boat, we are going to have to be very aggressive in responding, because we don't want a commitment by an unsuspecting Senator Ricketts in believing what these anti-kratom advocates are saying as the basis for him going off and actually filing a bill like this. And so we're going to be very aggressive. We've already deployed our lobbyists up there to meet with all 11 of the offices. And we've already, as each of you knows, launched our advocate campaign to email the staffers who are responsible for FDA issues in those offices. And as the meetings with our federal lobbying team converged with that effort, as of this afternoon, Senator Blumenthal's staffer reported to one of our lobbyists, and maybe complain was a little better word for it, that he had gotten over 1,500 emails on this topic, and it shocked them. Now, that goes back to the 2016 battle that we had, when we had tens of thousands of emails and phone calls that were going in. There were 6,000 phone calls that went to the DEA offices, and later the public affairs officer for the DA told me that they had never seen that kind of reaction to a scheduling recommendation that they had initiated at the recommendation of the FDA. So I think we're back into that ground zero kind of planning and implementation and execution on this. We have sent a letter to each one of those 11 senators, and I'll try to make sure we get that put up on our website so all of you can see it, and to the extent that it's helpful, use it. We are soliciting meetings with all 11 of those senators. And here's the part that I think involves each kratom advocate. We want to convene a kratom fly-in next month, and we're working now to secure a room for a congressional briefing that we also want to do. And then we'll probably spend a day and a half around that congressional briefing having Hill meetings. And so we're encouraging, and we'll get the dates to you as fast as we can. Certainly, we can do it by Friday, I hope, but the latest Monday, but hopefully Friday. We'll get the date, and you can start planning for those that are able to come. And I would encourage you to each advocate to reach out to their network and see if you can get help in order to pay for getting here to Washington, for the airfare, for the hotels and the lodging and meal expenses, because we need as many people as we can get to participate in that fly-in to do this. And certainly reach out to vendors if you have relationships with them. Stephanie in our office is going to put up a sort of chat board where you can exchange information about vendors that might be willing to help. But there'll be limited resources there. I think it's fair, and I would encourage you to reach out to your family and your network of Kratom friends and see if they can help you in doing this. But as many people as we can get to come to our fly-in, we absolutely need to have you there, because we're at this point where this issue has now become a serious issue when you see this level of intervention at both the Senate and House level. So I think it's critically important that you do that. And obviously, our messaging is going to be twofold. We want the Congress to act responsibly to make sure that they regulate kratom and that they regulate the formulations of products so that 7-OH, whether the DA bans it or not, is regulated out of the marketplace just by definition on the bills themselves. And And obviously, a second part of that message is we really need to get the FDA to come to their senses about the current language that is in their FDA and Kratom webpage. We know that that webpage is the basis for enforcement actions against the Kratom consumer public and against Kratom products. And it's being used by California, by Michigan, New Mexico, Ohio, Minnesota, Florida. That's just a few of the states, and obviously all are influenced by what's happening on that webpage. And we've made serious runs at the FDA to get them to make those changes, to convince them how critical it is. And we understand that at the commissioner's office level, that they're dealing with pushback from the attorneys who are claiming that if the changes are made to the FDA and Kratom webpage, that it will send a signal that the FDA is endorsing Kratom. Now, that is the most nonsensical possible explanation that I can think of. This is just the career staff rearing its head and saying that they want to keep the status quo, despite what Commissioner McCary is thinking or what his pronouncements are. And it's a unique situation in that you had the HHS secretary and the FDA commissioner jointly with the DEA commissioner in the room, or the deputy commissioner, promoting this ban on 7-OH. And I can tell you that's unprecedented. But the career staff that populates the legal teams and the bureaucracy at the FDA, they're just going to push back, and they are doing so. And we've got to figure out or convince Commissioner McCary that he needs to take a stronger hand in forcing them to comply with what would be good public policy, because certainly what they're doing now is not. And the fact that you have a FDA and Kratom webpage, which by law must meet standards, that if there's a foreseeable use of the information that's populating that web page by other entities, including state and local health departments, then it has to be taken down. Or, and this is an important distinction, it has to go through regular rulemaking procedures, which means a year of hearings so that they can vet the content of that webpage. None of that happened. This was the bias that formulated the language on that webpage by these career staffers at the FDA who've had a longstanding bias against all dietary and botanical supplements. And I think that this is the situation we're in. And I think that the 7-OH issue complicates this dramatically, because here you have a separate issue, and it gets in the way of the 7-OH bureaucracy. I'm sorry, the FDA bureaucracy, because they want all kratom banned at that level. And now we know that the science that came out, and you have to imagine it was a bitter pill for them to swallow to see the results of the FDA dose finding study with humans when they came back and said they could not induce a serious adverse event well beyond the levels of consumption that the FDA scientists at the career staff level had been saying would induce seizures and other kinds of serious adverse events. And they didn't get those, even up to 12 grams in a 5-minute period, which is an astounding amount of kratom in that length of time. And all they got was nausea at both the placebo and the kratom cohort. So that had to have been very difficult for the FDA staffers to, but that's the reality of life. And now they have to obviously, appropriately should have to deal with the truth of the matter rather than their biases that they have on these things. So that's just the reality of what we're dealing with. All of us know that the decision by the commissioner and HHS secretary on July 29th of 2025 changed the world that we live in with respect to kratom, because it painted a target that squarely was on the backs of every kratom manufacturer and slash 7-OH manufacturer. And the response has been fascinating, because I think that it adds to the confusion about what kratom is. State legislators and local jurisdictions simply don't understand it. The level of sophistication is low. and they're picking everything up that they know about Kratom off of a Google search, which is probably the worst place to do it, other than if you wanted to hear from the so-called most experienced scientist on 7OH in the universe, hearing from her, which would be uh, difficult for anyone who's rationally thinking that this is a good source of information. And I'm going to talk about her in just a few minutes, but that's the challenge we're facing. So you see the evidence of that. For better or worse, it's the reality we're in. We had a are having a hard time in Tennessee. That state is going to go south on us with a ban unless we are able to pull off a rabbit trick on this, which we're trying to do in order to expose the fact, two things. One, that the autopsy report for the Matthew Davenport, whom the bill is named after, does not support the conclusions that are offered that this was a kratom death. And in fact, the tox screens and the autopsy report conclude the opposite, that in fact, it was a high dose, and I mean an extremely high dose of Benadryl that could have caused that death. And certainly the levels of mitragynine in his bloodstream were not at a level that would have created any conclusion legitimately there was a kratom death. But it's become the joke of the day among these medical examiners that anytime kratom is detected, they're going to jump on the bandwagon in order to blame kratom. So it's the reality again that we're dealing with. Kansas pulled a Connecticut trick on us, where yesterday the committee added it, even though we had worked with all of the major stakeholders in the legislature to convince them that there was a better path forward. The Senate stuck it in, much like they did in Connecticut, in the dark of night, and now we've got a serious problem in the state of Kansas in terms of a ban. And we know that there are bans that are out there, and this is again unprecedented. In the last 10 years, as we've worked with the states, and starting in 2019 through today, we've probably been working in 10 to 12 states. We're now up to more than 30, which has stretched our resources, made it extremely difficult, impossible in terms of hearings. We had hearings today in Tennessee, in Idaho, and we have floor work in Missouri, and a hearing here in Arizona. And to get those meetings and hearings covered is extremely difficult. And we've seen the devastating impacts on the companies that are involved in the manufacturing and marketing of kratom products being financially devastated by the 7OH intrusion into the marketplace, where they're deceiving kratom consumers into thinking that these are natural leaf kratom products when they're not. So that combination of things has made it difficult, but we're struggling as best we can. All of your help and any that you can do for us in the future would be very helpful. So thank you to those that have done it, and I hope you'll consider continuing to support us in that regard. And then we see things that are interesting that happen. In the state of Delaware, they just filed a ban bill, so we're going to jump on that. South Carolina, we have a ban bill that we're trying to contain, but we have a director of the Department of Health who believes that if the legislature doesn't act to ban kratom, that he has the authority to do it unilaterally. And that's an open question, but we're working on it. Florida, we continue to have problems because the 7OH rulemaking that was done by the Attorney General, which would have banned any 7OH product that is greater than 400 parts per million, really they went down to the tubes because of a bitter, and I can't overstate that, a bitter fight between the House Speaker and the Attorney General. And so we're part of the carnage in that political battle. Now the my understanding is that the Attorney General has the authority to refile when his emergency rule ends another rule. It has to be substantially different from the first rule, but they're working on the language with that, and we're helping and hoping that we get a good outcome there, which will continue to create a safer marketplace for Florida consumers. But again, we want a KCPA in Florida. We want this to be a regulated marketplace, and we want product formulations to be appropriate to protect consumers. So that's our goal there. In the state of California, we are working with Assemblywoman Bain, who is the I'm sorry, the sponsor of our KCPA, and she has agreed to actually send a letter to both the Department of Public Health in California and to the FDA commissioner nationally to tell them to help resolve this problem. And that's a pretty big lift for her because she's running for Congress and she is a well-respected member of the Assembly. And we want to kickstart our bill to make sure that it gets through the Senate and back to the House in amended form going forward. In the state of Idaho, we had a hearing today. It got voted on to go to and I forgot what they call it, but it's an amendment process. So we don't have much time. This has got to be amended immediately. It's got to get back out to the Senate floor, get passed, then over to the House and get through. I mean, they're gonna close up shop here on Friday, and maybe as long as Monday, but probably Friday. So we're working hard to get a bill there. In the state of Michigan, I think all of you probably saw the reports of the House Speaker who pulled the KCPA bill from committee, converted it to a ban bill, invoked a rule that's rarely used in the legislature in Michigan that required all House members to sit in their seats until he got what he wanted, which was a vote on a ban bill in the state of Michigan. And his main cheerleader was Patty Wheeler, who is the main producer of the documentary that she is putting together with all of her Hollywood friends about her son's death, which she attributes to kratom. Again, highly suspect because the autopsy reports, well, we don't have one for her son yet. I think there's a reason why. You just have to go to the Kratom Danger Awareness webpage, and they tell their members do not provide autopsies or tox reports publicly because we know that the AKA will not that they'll misuse them. Well, the autopsies and tox reports say what they say, and there's no misuse of them. You interpret them based on the data that's available, and what we're seeing, as we saw with the Tennessee case, a high concentration of Benadryl that caused the death. We saw the same thing in CJ's Law in New Jersey, where he was ingesting a lot of other products. But we see this consistently. And in Idaho, where the vote was taken today to move it to the amendment committee, we have a death that is frankly is highly suspect based on the examination by professional toxicologists. That's the large basis for the Idaho bill, simply doesn't pass muster. We're seeing it consistently, so we'll continue to educate, promote, and work with people. We had a hearing in Minnesota today. That hearing produced a vote on an age gating bill. They're going to defer a discussion about more robust regulations and 708 to the next session. That's disappointing, but we at least got to start on getting a strong age gating on kratom products, which will in effect tell the Minnesota Department of Agriculture that the legislature has deemed kratom to be a product that is available legally for sale because they've been relying upon the FDA and kratom webpage, and we may still have a fight on that, but at least we've got a good first step with the legislature going forward. I've already mentioned Missouri, where they had the vote today on the floor of the Senate, and it's being deferred. In Florida, we had, and I mentioned that earlier, but it's gotten very complex because the Department of Agriculture has put out their rule because there's no legislation, and now they're saying that the remedy for complying with the Florida Attorney General's rule, which is now going to die in a month, it requires it to no longer use stickers. Now they're saying it has to be permanently affixed labels. And this is unfair to every manufacturer because it contradicts federal law in terms of what content of labels have to be. And it's certainly not that rule is not going to be in effect very much longer. So it's just astounding that what a bureaucrat can do in these kinds of situations. But we're working hard in Florida to try to get this contained in some fashion. In Ohio, there was a hearing. It was today too, and We had good presentations there. We're working with as many experts as we can get to help us in these states. And so I think Ohio, we did well, and it's an education process there. Georgia, I know most of you know that the ban bill that was promoted by the Representative Townsend there in Georgia died in the Rules Committee. And we can call that a win. But I want to talk for just a minute about Representative Townsend. Uh, it is indescribable to any rational person how Representative Townsend can, with a straight face, try to describe what he is doing about Kratom. His first pitch 2 years ago was that Kratom needed to be banned because it wasn't being enforced correctly, that the existing law was not being enforced. And that turned into a more robust set of regulations on Kratom, including caps on serving sizes, or a number of servings per day. And all through it, he was saying that the problem was that it wasn't being enforced correctly. And by the time that we were able to successfully get some amendments in, he was still asked in the Senate Health Committee, well, what is your enforcement mechanism? And he couldn't answer the question. The guy who was promoting the fact that his bill needed to have stronger enforcement couldn't even tell who was doing it. And Matt Wetherington, the trial attorney, had to jump up and whisper in Representative Townsend's ear to tell him what's local law enforcement, which is probably the weakest of the enforcement mechanisms that they could have. But importantly, Townsend doesn't know what he's talking about, but yet he blunders and blusters through all of this. This year in the committee, he comes up with a ban bill, and he clearly lost on that. So he switches to a regulation bill. And again, he no enforcement mechanism. There's no way to properly reconcile what he's doing. So at the hearing, the last hearing that was held in the House Judiciary Committee, uh, he brought up a substitute bill at the last minute. Now, those of us sitting in the audience should have had access to that on the internet website of the Georgia legislature, as the members of the committee would have. And for reasons that are unknown, and I don't think there was anything nefarious by Representative Townsend, the substitute bill was not available. So the committee chair asked Representative Townsend to explain what his substitute bill did. They wanted to know, and this is important, the major changes that he was advocating for. Representative Townsend went on this blathering, incoherent discussion about it and failed to recognize or identify a couple of major changes, which included, and I'll use this just as an example, it included a provision that he did not disclose as part of the major provisions, but think about the consequences of this, that the only kratom products that could be sold in the state of Georgia had to uh, had to have been grown and harvested in the United States. Now think about that. He doesn't think that's a major change. That, of course, is a ban because there's no domestic production of kratom that could come close to meeting the demand, much less adhering to the quality standards in terms of the mid content of the plants that is possible in the United States. And so it just shows you that he's just plain dumb when it comes to this kind of legislative exercise because he's not operating in good faith. He's obviously, in my opinion, he's being handled by the trial attorneys, and we've seen it firsthand when he's up there and working with them. When I talked to him, he can never come to a commitment. I said to him in the last meeting, let's you and I talk man to man and let's come to a deal here. And he says, well, I can't do that. Of course he can't do it because he's got to go back and talk to the trial attorneys. And it's just not a great situation. But he's now licking his wounds. He's telling people publicly that he's going to come back next year and push another ban on kratom. So it'll be an annual sojourn with him, but we're going to be there to fight toe to toe with him along the way. Uh, and then I want to tell you about another unfortunate case, but I think we need to identify and learn lessons from it. What happened in the state of Utah was an example of disorganization, poor messaging, and conflicting messaging that never should have happened. And the problem, I think, candidly, was that we had some industry people delivering one message and the consumer advocacy groups delivering a different message, even though we were supposed to be aligned. We thought we had an agreement, at least I did, on the language that was going to be proposed, and we ended up with this catastrophic problem in the state of Utah, which was derivative not of the facts, not on the science, not on the material that was being used in the production of kratom plants, both natural plant and extracts, but because of our own ham-handed kind of disorganization with conflicting messages being sent to legislators, which allowed Senator Mike McKell to push his way through. Now, he started with a ban, which he didn't get, but now he's gotten restrictions on extract products and restrictions on the locations that can sell kratom, which severely hamper consumer access to safely formulated kratom products. It's just, we have to recognize when we make mistakes, and I'm telling you, we made a whopper of one in the state of Utah. Uh, I can tell you that the good story on all of this is Rhode Island, because you will have a Rhode Island Kratom Consumer Protection Act, which repeals the current ban, take effect in April. But interestingly, one of our strong critics, who I think must have been in the same class with the Georgia representative, Representative Townsend, but Representative McGaugh, who's a pharmacist, and she just is on a tear about kratom. And her, even though the bill has not even gone into effect, she wants to add an additional provision that requires that all kratom products have to be put behind the counter and under lock and key. And the rationale for that, which is not based on any science, it's just her hatred for kratom. And of course, she wants it in a pharmacy where she can control it. And that's just nonsense. But again, it forces us to apply resources to a state that we cannot afford to lose because we made such great progress there. And and frankly, we've got some real champions up there that we're going to recognize as we go forward. But this is obviously a significant and huge problem when we get into these kinds of challenges in the states. Next area is local bans. This is one that requires as much help as we can get from the advocacy community in the local communities where you live, because the more you drill down to these local communities, it's the local residents that have the most impact. And I think that it's a huge problem if we don't have our people there. We do our best to figure this out, to get our advocates there, but too often we have advocates that are not in that local area, and that's true at the state level too in some respects. But we need help, and so I hope that you'll stay alert to the request and the appeals for help, that you can, when you can, that you will participate and help, particularly in those local areas, because they are becoming the substitute ban mechanism for the 7-OH people and the anti-kratom people, where they can just pick off large jurisdictions. And a great example of that is what happened in Nassau County in New York, and now is going to go to another county that's very largely populated. So we have to fight back, obviously, on those things. So thank you. And that leads to a part of the discussion that is somewhat sensitive, but I think it needs to be said. And that is that there are advocates in the space who have decided that they're going to be above it all, that they're not going to be these kratom advocates and oppose 7-OH because they're more enlightened than the rest of us. And I can tell you that it all came, at least for me, to a boiling point when on February 14th on the Kratom Gals podcast, and the Kratom Gals are comprised of some very nice people, but they've added recently Robin Graham, who formerly worked with the American Kratom Association in state advocacy work. She's now formed a new organization called the Botanics Advocacy and Education Group, and so she's on that podcast now as a regular contributor. and then you've got a couple of others that come in and out. One of whom is a very, very strong 7OH advocate, and she's entitled to that position, by the way. But I don't think that if you hold yourself out to be a group that's trying to protect the health and welfare of a consumer, that you cannot be in the space of saying, I'm going to be a libertarian. I'm going to let people make their own choices. I'm not going to inform people about 7OH and what its potential dangers are, because I just want to let everybody to live and let live. Madeline Sklar, who runs the Kratom Gals podcast, uh, uh, received my written concerns about the content of that February 14th website. And I had several. One is that I thought that they have gone overboard on allowing for and misstating the circumstances under which 7OH products are being sold to consumers. It's all happiness. It's like riding through the Disney fun tunnels. I mean, this is craziness to suggest that there is nothing harmful about 7OH, and more importantly, to say that it's a legitimate product on the marketplace. So that was my first objection, and I was clear to her that what she will not talk about is that even their own 7OH chief scientific officer, one of the major manufacturers, admitted publicly that the 7OH people in September of 2025 did not have the requisite science that's required by federal law for market entry to have the evidence and data on the safety profile of a product entered in the marketplace under the conditions of use, meaning the serving size and the labeling. He admitted it, and that's all glossed over by Madeline. Oh, we're not going to talk about that. And she told me that she was willing to, if I would give her the timestamp on the podcast, requiring me to go back and meticulously go through it. I was furious about the general description of it. There were plenty of instances, but there were too many to do a exercise on timestamps. And then my second complaint was that you have Robin Graham, who has formed a new group, and in that discussion, she was complaining about, oh, the advocates don't turn out anymore. The advocates just aren't doing it. And our organization, this new organization, was going to empower advocates. And that's nonsense. I have been to multiple hearings. You just have to go to Idaho today and see the number of advocates that showed up in order to fight back against obviously the anti-kratom people. And I've seen it in Ohio. I've seen it in Tennessee. I've seen it everywhere. Now, there are occasions when the legislators aren't going to let everybody talk, but they show up. And the idea that Robin Graham would have the temerity to try to denigrate the consumer community and the advocate community in the kratom space was deeply offensive to me. And I said to Madeline, I said, let me come on your podcast and let's have a discussion about these things. That's what it should be about. And what Madeline said to me, and I've been friendly with her in the past, what Madeline said to me was, oh, send me the point by point, timestamp by timestamp, exactly what you didn't like. And then after that, we'll have a call with the ladies that are part of her podcast. And during that call, we'll record it. So we're going to have a recorded telephone call rather than having an open discussion on her podcast, which is what the platform that she uses in order to have these discussions. She doesn't want any dissent. And so I'm telling you that when someone does that, when someone behaves, when someone constructs that kind of a podcasting platform and abuses it, then I think that it crosses the line. I offered not only to come on her podcast, which she denied, I said, you come on a webinar with us and bring all of your participants with you. I have no problem with an open, an honest, and candid discussion. And I think that the bottom line is that this is something that we have to confront because it becomes a malaise. Now, I can tell you that there are some that might say, well, the AK has made one mistake or two mistakes or 100 mistakes. I don't know. But I'll tell you where we are. We're out in front on every one of them. We try our best to motivate people. We may not hit every mark the way that we are, but I can tell you that when I'm sitting here, gotten up this morning at 3 a.m. in the morning to get to a flight, and then I go to a red eye tonight so I can be back in Washington for tomorrow. I'm there, but I'm a piker compared to some of these other advocates that are along the way. So I don't mind criticism. I don't mind that people might dispute one thing or another, but I can tell you, bottom line, bottom line is that when you hide and you don't let an open, honest discourse take place, then you're hiding something. And I'm done with the Kratom Gals podcast, and I encourage everyone else to be done with them too until they're willing to come forward and say what the honesty is. And I'll tell you something about Robin Graham that was interesting when she was criticizing advocates. She said, we just don't see advocates coming out, and those advocates should get off their butts. That's her quote. Get off their butts to get to these meetings. I attended two legislative meetings in Montana, which is where Robin Graham lives. I did not see Robin Graham at either one of those. I flew in to that meeting, to those two meetings, and she was not there, not present. And you could, by the way, you can zoom in virtually to these and testify. I was at two Board of Pharmacy meetings, and nothing, and these were virtual meetings, easy to attend. Now, to her credit, one of them, the she explained that she had a death in her family, but she's leading an organization that should have other people that are attending those meetings. So I don't understand if that's what her claim is. And then we had a meeting with the interim Judiciary Committee in the Montana legislature, and she was not there. So I'm sorry when someone leads an organization that's on the Kratom Gals podcast and wants to lecture me and lecture you about getting off your butts. That person should be looking at the four fingers that are pointing back at her as she points the bony finger of blame at us. Because where is she and where is her organization and where are the people that are supposed to be there? Now, I raised this because, and obviously it's a pet peeve to me, but I don't think you should denigrate the advocates. There are plenty of reasons why an advocate may or may not be able to participate in any given particular hearing. But the bottom line is that we should be positive. We should be encouraging. We should be motivating people and not playing these games of these backhanded slaps at them merely to build your organization, whatever that is, to raise money, whatever you're doing that for. And that certainly is wrong. And I think a podcasting platform, they're entitled to advocate for 7OH, but don't play the middle ground. Don't say that you aren't willing to talk about how 7OH got on the market in the first place. Don't say that you're not willing to look at the product formulations that are appealing to children, including Smurfs, including ice cream confections, which they say, oh, they're not selling those anymore. And that's nonsense. You can go on and buy them right now. When I talked about these issues about what you can buy, the 7OH people were saying, and actually the chief scientist of the Seven Hope Alliance told California legislators they are no longer selling sublingual products. I purchased, after her testimony and after her statements to individual legislators, I went out and purchased them, and I got them and I got them back within a week to the American Kratom Association offices. So they're not very careful about who they send them to. And these are products which Michelle Ross says they're not selling anymore. That's not true. They are. And so they pose an imminent threat to the American people. And I think that they need to be called out for it. And I think that's probably an important thing. So I think that that's my pet peeve for tonight. But I think bottom line is I am grateful, enormously grateful for over the years the people that have been there, that have stood up. And now we have an opportunity here next month when we get those dates to you, for those that can, to find a way to come and support us in Washington, to support the message. I think the message is important. And I think that's where we need to be and where we can be. Now, I'm going to stop there and we can go through some of the comments. Uh, and again, I'm willing to take the criticism as long as it's fair, but I'm also willing to explain on some of these things about how it's doing. So let's go to the Q and A's first and see if what we've got, and then I'll go back to the comments. Um, Nick says, Mac, I've been following the California situation very closely. County officials from SLO County, I'm not sure what that is, and Ventura County are issuing cease and desist letters to retailers selling Kratom products. I haven't heard any updates regarding AB 1088 since the informational hearing in February. Do you know if there are any plans for a hearing before the end of April, or will the bill die? So, Nick, my understanding is from our lobbying team, the bill is not going to die. It's going to move forward. It doesn't move at a speed that I would like to see it because we need to signal the governor's office and the Department of Public Health. But the fact that Assemblywoman Bain is willing to write the letters to do it, that's a good step. And we're certainly needing to get some action in California, and hopefully our collaterally our efforts to convince the FDA to change that website, which would undermine the basis for this, for their actions in those states. Hopefully we can get that done. Michael says, will there be any hearing for Illinois KCPA bill? Are they conflicted on the home rule preemptive part of it? I sent my email to the reps. Looks like the Castro's ban bill dies by Friday if no movement. These legislative processes are complicated and difficult, but I think you're right on the ban bill, and we're just going to work through that. We expect that we're going to get some action on because we now have an agreement between the various factions in the Kratom community, and I can report to you and this is certainly true and important in Illinois, that the Global Kratom Coalition, Botanics for Better Health and Wellness, and the AKA are working together as partners. We're working on these things. We've resolved the language differences, and so I think that that's where we are on these kinds of things. So this is hopefully we're going to get that done, and we have enough inertia behind that we'll get some movement in the Illinois legislature. Brian asked, thank you for all you do. Thank you. You mentioned I'll be in DC. I will. Will anyone from the AK be attending the Judiciary Committee hearing in South Carolina tomorrow? I just mentioned that we're partnering with GKC and Botanics for Better Health and Wellness, and we've made some assignments. The Better Health and Wellness people will be covering the hearing in South Carolina tomorrow. They've engaged with both legislative leaders and with the Department of Health. And interestingly, the director of the Department of Health doesn't believe that he has to have legislative authority. He thinks he can go ban kratom on his own. So that's a real difficult issue that we're working on. But there will be coverage at the committee hearing in South Carolina tomorrow, and we'll be able to give you a report once we see how that hearing goes. There are issues here that I'm not certain that these legislators are up to speed on the way they should be. So we'll have to see where we are. Justin asked, do you know when the Minnesota Senate Health Committee meeting that addresses this will be? And I hope you said mean Minnesota, or maybe you mean Michigan. But the Michigan one is up in the air because we're trying to negotiate with the Senate to try to stop the House bill, and I think that's you are talking about Michigan. So we'll have to report back to you, but we're still in flux on that. Dustin says, is the constant assertion that it's all big pharma behind these bans starting to hurt the credibility of the kratom community's defense because of the lack of any kind of hard proof? I'm afraid it's starting to hurt us regardless if big pharma is behind it or not. I've actually believed that along with persecutory ideology is the main driver of the desire to ban kratom, and these politicians are actually counting on all of us believing it's just big pharma. So I have been a skeptic of the argument about big pharma in the sense that we're talking about, the pharma organization. I think it is true that there are pharma companies who have an interest in the opioid marketplace, that have an interest in fighting against kratom being available. But my personal opinion, and I could be wrong on this because there's no data that drives it, but I think our problem is with the substance abuse community, I'm sorry, that is losing clients because of the the reduction in the number of opioid patients that they are treating, and they're looking for the next wave of clients and patients that they can treat at their very high levels. So they have to characterize kratom as a dangerous drug because that's the only way they could justify getting reimbursed at the federal and state levels that they do for these substance abuse treatments. And I think that's the bigger driver. I've seen evidence of that in listening to people that come up and talk to these committees and seeing the lobbyists who are, they're not testifying publicly, but our lobbyists are clashing with these people on a regular basis. So I think that that's going to be a serious problem that we have to deal with going forward. But we're going to continue to work on it. And now it's also true that the Kratom Danger Awareness and some other anti-kratom groups have started to organize better. I think you saw the evidence of that in the Senate letter that was sent. So one of those groups is a nonprofit marijuana group, and another one it says Stop the Stigma, a Virginia-based organization, and that's being led and perhaps funded, I don't know, by some of the anti-kratom people there, and then Kratom Danger Awareness. So we have to work through whatever that coalition of enemies are, anti-kratom people, and we'll just do our best. So we're fighting every day. Um, Stephen asked, broad strokes, do we know when the flying might be? It's going to be in April, I think the third week in April, maybe the week of the 20th. Um, and we will know in advance of that what the landscape is politically. We're hoping to discourage the members of that 11 group of senators from doing what we heard they might do, which is to file a bill to ban kratom. And let me tell you just an anecdotal thing. Our lobbying team was up talking to one of those senators' offices, and the staffer complained that he had gotten 1,500 emails in the last 2 days. Uh, so much for the claim by Robin Graham that the lobbyists or the advocates aren't showing up. What nonsense! Uh, and how and how ridiculous that claim is, how self-serving it is, because that group shouldn't exist. But for we've got to cover for all the AK's mistakes because they don't motivate advocates to do this. So anyway, that's where we are. Um, so I think that we're going to continue to work hard on planning for that meeting, and we'll get this information out to you hopefully by the end of this week if we can get a room. It's competition in the visitor center for the congressional briefing, so that's pretty much what's driving all of this. Stephen asked, broad strokes, do we know when I'm flying? I've just answered that. And I've answered the bill. We don't know for sure when the bills will land, other than we know that tomorrow is the hearing for the Bilirakis bill, which bans 7-OH. But that's the only one that's on the agenda for now. Sarah asked, is there any agenda for this meeting? I'm winging it, Sarah. I apologize. I've been in hearings all day here in Arizona. But I think I've covered the issues we wanted to cover and give you an update on the federal situation. We wanted to talk about the states and the local bans and give you an idea of what's happening, certainly with this planned fly-in as we're going forward. Ryan says, not looking a gift horse in the mouth, but why did things in Minnesota seem to go so smoothly across those two hearings? Used to be a much faster uphill battle as far as kratom bills go in these legislatures. Super thankful for the AK and all the testifiers. Thank you. Um, this is there's no way to predict what's going to happen any more than what happened in Kansas, where at the last minute they slipped in a ban bill. That happened in Connecticut in the last 2 days of the session. So there's always some crafty legislator that's going to be out there and trying to create problems for us. So I can't answer that with any definitive, this is exactly what happens, but things go well when we're able to get in front of these legislators and make our case, and it's absolutely terrific. Ryan says, what's the trajectory in Kansas? The fix was in when this happened in Connecticut. I agree. I think we're now appealing to the House over there, and we're working with the governor's office. We've got some real work to do, but Kansas is a real problem, and they're going to close out their legislative session here in the next week or so. So we're under a very tight timeline uh, uh, and all that. Sarah asked who's speaking this evening. That's me, Mac Haddo. I'm going to open it up for comments here. I'm going through the the Q&As right now, and then I'll address and invite some people in the chat if they want to voice some of their concerns to be able to do so. Um, Michael says, when you say we only approve food grade solvents for extracts, that means to not make it too potent, or is it more quality non-contamination thing? It's about potency. There are other controls that can be done in a good manufacturing process to make sure that you're not going to get contamination. But the food grade solvents are all about the power of and the potency of the product and the way that metrogenine is extracted. It gets isolated and then it's extracted. And we want to make sure that we're not getting two things in the extraction process. One, more potent metrogenine than proportionally exists in the plant. And you don't want the solvents that are so powerful to have artifacts in the product so that it's a non-kratom product. And there you would have a contamination problem. So it's a great point. Thank you for pointing it out. But that's part of the problem. Ryan says, I tuned in for a bit of the Idaho hearing and I'm blown away by the testimony. We are still in this and no one should downplay our advocacy. What is happening with the KCPA and is there realistically time? I remember the committee last week saying they'd have to default to a ban bill if the KCPA doesn't pass fast enough. Great point, Ryan. There was fabulous testimony. I didn't get to see much of it. I saw the last four witnesses, I think, but fabulous. And the reports I got were great. So the timing in Idaho is going to be all dependent on whether the House committee believes the Senate is moving. If they get the amendments made to it, get it amended, get it out to the floor, it's all going to be in the hands of the gods at that point, gods being the Speaker of the House and the Senate President. So hopefully we'll get it through along the way. Chris asked, given the events in Tennessee today, what's our next steps? Now we're fighting the battle. And we have a strategy in Tennessee, but I can't disclose it to you because if I did, then it would obviously there are powers who listen in on our calls that would understand what that strategy is, but we're working on it. And it was very unfortunate that we see a bill that is ostensibly motivated by a family member whose son did not die of kratom. And this has been something. If you listen to Representative Helton Haynes saying that 7-OH has been around Tennessee for 10 years, that's nonsense. She also said that the American Kratom Association wasn't talking or doing anything about this. We started in 2019 and we put restrictions on 7-OH in our first bill before we knew that what the bad actors were going to do. And to suggest that that is ridiculous. She's been misinformed, and we're going to help her understand it better going forward. We hope we can work with her in order to get to a better place. But she was just misinformed about some of the things she said there. I hope it wasn't deliberate. I think probably not. These legislators listen and they get information. I think she's probably told something that just wasn't true. Erica says she didn't catch what happened in Missouri today. That they had a floor debate on the Senate and they've deferred it for action because there were questions raised. There are some amendments that they want considered by the sponsor. We're working with those. Some of them are ridiculous. I mean, you get requirements for packaging, for example, and the packaging requirements they want are the federal standard that's for pharmaceutical products that a 5-year-old cannot have access to. That's not what kratom is, and it's not for a dietary or botanical supplement. It doesn't make any situation any better along the way. Megan asked, the FDA was forced by the court order in California to release findings on kratom. Do we have any legal recourse to get them to change the website? That's one of the options that we're looking at. Litigation is expensive. Judges tend to favor the agencies, but there's a new portion of a law that was determined, that was a Chevron decision, that now doesn't allow so much reliance upon the agency. So it's one of the things we're considering, but we've got other discussions ongoing about those changes that we hope will be more productive. Long and expensive battle when we litigate. Nick says, what is the status of the Connecticut situation? I think we're fighting, considering a couple of options. Most realistic one is to come back next year and fix that. Rhode Island did it. I think we can do it in Connecticut. James says, do we think the FDA commission will push back against the senator letter given the previous announcements from them, or can we not depend on help there? I think they will. I think that they will communicate back, and they'll and hopefully soon, so that they can stop any potential effort to make it a federal ban legislation being enacted. Um, Stephanie asked, what should we do in Tennessee? Stand by. We're working on it. I think that it's going to be a tricky thing. It might just be in the hands of the governor now. And here's the thing that I'll tell you that is so astounding. When you look at the fiscal impact report, and every state has tight budgets. Tennessee is no exception. They're really tight. The governor gave Helton Hayes $1.2 million a year to enforce her ban bill. It was predicated on the estimate of kratom consumption from SAMHSA back in 2000 and I think 21. And even the author of that report admitted that it was defective, and they used that estimate for the population, which was less than 1%. And you look at the more recent prevalence study of kratom consumption in the United States done by Oliver Grundmann about a year ago, and he got it at 9.1%. So if you're measuring the fiscal impact on loss of sales tax revenue from 30,000 people instead of 500,000 people, then you've got a problem, because that fiscal impact is dramatically higher. And if you're looking at the enforcement costs, when you look at what happens if you ban kratom and then you get a ballooning opioid abuse situation that has to be treated and funded by the state, you get another. That's $1 billion price tag if you use the correct numbers going forward. So we're hopeful that information will be helpful to them, because their fiscal note was grossly understated. So that's part of the problem we're running into. Josh asked about who's driving all these bans, big pharma money. I think I've explained that. It might be, but I don't know. But I think it's more likely these substance abuse clinics that are looking for more money, and I think that's where we are. Misty asked, oh, I'm sorry. Deborah says, I just got home from Tennessee House and the Senate. Jennifer Gillis and I went around to the representative's offices, tried to speak with anyone who would listen. I spoke with Helton Hayes and Miss Davenport. Also spoke with Rusty Grills. What is the best approach for the future? We're going to continue to work with these people. We're going to continue to be respectful. We'll do everything we can in order to advance the cause with accurate, good information. It's going to be tough to do because of the tight time frame in Tennessee. And I think our bigger strategy is going to be with the governor's office and maybe some of the legislative leaders. But we'll stay tuned, and we'll tell you what specific help we need. We might be back in the negotiation here at a high level rather than advocates. Let's see. Deborah says, don't the rehabilitation programs use Suboxone for the treatment of rehabilitation? They absolutely do. And it's like taking a bazooka to a kratom consumer that use Suboxone. It's an opioid. It's not an appropriate treatment. Russell says, I am in Illinois. What are the chances that kratom ban is coming to my state? You aren't going to get a kratom ban in Illinois, in my opinion, but we're going to have to fight for good regulations. So Dustin says, a group against kratom called Stop the Stigma. Did I hear that right? Isn't that ironic? Yes, it is. And it's a Virginia-based group. Stop the Stigma. We're going to fight hard. Misty Brown reports from Bud, who's in New York. Great fellow, great advocate. Mac, we need to set up a meeting with the president's office of HHS. How can we get their attention? We're trying. I mean, we got unprecedented, the support of the HHS secretary, but now we're back in the mire of trying to get his attention again. Just he has limited amount of time to apply to this issue, so we're fighting that practical issue. Let's see. Dawn asked, can we have a sort of a template for writing and calling so we are on the same page for Tennessee? We can, but we have to be careful that it doesn't look scripted, because then they call it astroturfing. What we want mostly is for people to tell their own personal stories. But the objective should be clear, that we want kratom to be regulated, not banned. But we'll get out more information as we need it here for Tennessee. Lori asked updates from Florida and Georgia. You did miss it. Sorry. You can catch them on the replay. Bottom line is the Georgia bill is dead this year. Florida, we're fighting administrative bureaucratic issues with the AG's office and the Department of Agriculture. And those are difficult, but we just keep fighting. Justin says, reading Michigan's H 4969, the wording appears to push regulation after meeting certain requirements. Is this a misdirect or will be banned? Well, the speaker wants it banned because he's listening to the Hollywood Crusader, Patty Wheeler, and he likes to have all that attention, and he just got misled. So hopefully the Senate will prevail on that, and we'll see how that works out. Um, let's see. Do you have any updates on Iowa? That's another one that we're watching closely, hoping that we can get the attention. And we're working on the ground right now in Iowa. I think it's a toss-up right now, what's happening there. And obviously they'll be influenced by Kansas. So we're watching it closely. So Ryan says, if you catch this, I've heard about the Senate amendments to the Iowa ban. Is there a reason to come to be more hopeful about this amendment than the ones we saw on the House floor? Well, the Senate's going to have to solve this problem there, if I remember correctly. Maybe it's the House has to say this, but our lobbyists are working on it, and as we need help, we are going to work on this and get advocates involved as best we can. Um, Kim Heron Singleton asked, I apologize if I joined late, but what happened in Arizona today? We won 4-3 in the committee, and it is now going to obviously gets out of that committee, which was important. So we're working hard on it going there. Um, Megan asked, whatever happened to Vermont overturning the ban? It's mired in the Department of Health, even though they agreed that it didn't meet the standards. They now want the legislature to do certain things. The legislature wants them to do certain things, so we're haggling back and forth with them. Misty says KDA sends scripted testimonies. Well, yeah, and they come across that way. I mean, I think uh, if you really do need help, we can do that. I just think your personal story, authentic stories, really are so powerful. Um, Glenn says, who do I write urging the FDA to change the website? That's the FDA commissioner. Everybody should do that. Um, I think that's the end of the Q and A's. I'm going to go to some of the webinar chats, and if I miss you, I apologize, but I know I've had people on here for a long time. But Tracy asked, do you think the FDA is dragging their feet on purpose to force the states to ban 7-OH and kratom on their own? No, I think that the FDA just operates in its own little ivory tower, and I don't think that that's what they're doing. Did I mention South Carolina? We did. Tracy says, in regards to the website changes or the 7-OH scheduling, the DA is taking their time on the scheduling recommendations because of a variety of factors, but mostly administrative rather than actually anti-kratom. So the problem is, as I understand it from the DEA, is that they were given some recommendations from the FDA that deal with the synthetic follow-on products, the Sudendoxil, the MGM 15 and 16, and now there's a bunch of new ones, M80s. I mean, they're crazy. And the DEA didn't feel like they had sufficient information to make a conclusion that those products should be scheduled, but they understand the problem because of this chemistry that these 7-OH people were engaged in. So that's, I think, what we're trying to fight there. Tracy says many FDA career staff don't like kratom and don't want anything but anti-kratom statements out there, but most of the appointee persons are more neutral or favorable. Absolutely right. And so we're good. I think that most of these questions have been answered by in the chat with some of our staff here. So let me just do this. Is there anyone that would like to raise their hand and be recognized here to either ask a question or make a comment? Because, and I'll say this again, I'm not afraid to have an open, honest dialogue. That is much different than what you saw with my friends over at the Kratom Gals thing. So Kelly, I'm going to recognize you. You just need to unmute yourself and have at it.
Mac, I don't know how to even express my feelings right now sitting in on this call. I don't want to represent my feelings. I think I'm an advocate. I got hot-headed today. I did, and I'll admit that when I was in Tennessee. I'm from Tennessee. I was there. I testified. I got hot-headed, and I'm hot-headed right now. And I'm looking at this I don't want to say this in the wrong way, but I feel like we're doing a money tug of war between everybody because I feel like this little lowly person who is not a person. I have never felt so less human than today, so less human. And now I hear you talking and I hear them talking, and all I hear is it's all about money. And I'm not saying that that's what you're doing, but I don't know what's going on right now. I'm so confused because I feel like money is driving all of this on both sides, but us people at the bottom are gonna suffer. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I'm not sure I do.
Okay, that's fine.
The money part of this is the only piece of money that I was referring to was that you have a new advocacy group who is trying to raise money from consumers based on the failures of the advocacy community to be properly motivated by the AKA. I think that that's incorrect. That was the only thing I said. Now,
I'm not
I will
saying
say this. I welcome every advocate. I don't care where they come from. Uh, every advocate, they don't have to agree with me and they don't have to agree with anybody else. They can give their own authentic testimony. I'm all for that. But I draw the line when you get open criticism against advocates from people that won't even do the very same thing that they're telling advocates they need to do, which is get off their butts when those people don't get off their butts and
right.
show up.
No, I agree with
That's
you. I've
frustrating. That's
sat
all.
in, I have spent, I am just a housewife from Tennessee. That's all I am. And I have asked for right. I have an autoimmune condition that is eating at my joints. I have been in every hearing in Tennessee, and I respect you with the utmost respect, Mac. I do. I'm not saying you. I'm just so confused. I don't know, maybe I wasn't the best person to raise my hand, but I just can't
No.
understand because I feel like this is just lobbyists and all these people, but I wasn't heard today. They looked at me like they were sympathetic and then they all voted for it. So and then I get what you're doing, but I'm not a big advocate. I'm not into this. I'm just a person here trying to survive. And I showed up for everything and nobody else did. I mean, not nobody else did. People did, but not enough people. And now I hear I don't know how legislation works, how this works. And now I start hearing about lobbyists and how everybody makes money. I just don't know where I'm at or what to believe. And it's just where I'm at. I don't know. I mean, I know what to believe because I know in my heart that Pure Leaf Kratom is 100% fine. I don't know if you've seen my testimony today or my picture and what I showed. I am the true testament of what Kratom is doing, and nobody is hearing me. I'm not feeling heard. I'm not feeling listened to, and I don't understand how this is all allowed to happen. I don't understand how Helton Haynes can say that 7OH has been on the market for 10 years when we all know that's not true.
Right.
How is she allowed to say that? And she says things with so much conviction. And I have met with her twice now because I did go say something to her today after, and maybe that wasn't appropriate, but I am frustrated and I am about to suffer so greatly. I'm going to suffer. My family's going to suffer. I don't understand how nobody is not bringing up the people that are going to pass away from this. The states that have bans have a 5% increase in fatal overdoses. Why are we not talking about that? Why are we not bringing that up? They want to bring up that it's killing people. Why are we not going to bring up the people that are about to die? Are we bringing that up? Is that being mentioned?
It is. And let me tell you something, Kelly. What you said was very important, that you're just, this kratom consumer. And your testimony is more powerful than most of the experts, certainly better than mine. I'm a kratom consumer too, but your critical use and the benefit you get from it is what they need to hear. The frustrating part is what you've identified when you stand before a group of elected officials who you think should be listening to you. And in fact, they've already made their minds up. They've already cut deals in the back room. That's part of the process that we have to work for and through. But I'll tell you, don't believe that you didn't make an impact because I guarantee you that after the hearing was over, there were apologies being given to our lobbying teams about, well, we just had to do this. We felt the pressure from the leadership. But at some point, it will make a difference. And on the money part, I may have misunderstood what you were saying about the money, but the reality is what you just said. Are they accounting for the number of people that will have to go into substance abuse treatment facilities that will cost the state nearly $1 billion if they ban kratom? Just based on the numbers that are readily available and verifiable by them? And are they looking at the cost that is incurred by people that will be forced to give up kratom, otherwise be criminalized? These are very difficult issues, and I know it seems like you're sort of working uphill on this, but I can tell you that it does count. It does make a difference, and I have been in states where I've seen, and I'll give you an example in Rhode Island when people came and testified against the existing ban in Rhode Island over the last 3 years. Last year, the chairman of the corporations committee told me, he said, man, he said, the thing that won the day, Mac, was those advocates that talked about how kratom saved their lives. He's right. And so your voice will be heard. Now, I'm going to go back and listen to the committee. I just couldn't do it because I was in the Arizona hearing, but I'm going to go back and listen to it. But I don't have to listen to it. Heard you tonight, and I hear your passion for it. I hear the frustration. I think it's great that you lost your cool to the extent you did with Hilton Haynes. I think she's wrong, and she needs to hear that voice. I mean, she got duped into this anti-kratom narrative by a mother who herself, by the way, Ms. Davenport is actually fairly reasonable about this. And she last year was willing to go with regulations, but Hilton Haynes decided to make, it's a bigger crusade to go out and ban it. And so we've got work to do there. But I thank you for your advocacy. And
And I just want to, I don't know if this means anything, but we have an email from 1 year ago from Hilton Haynes where she was, I'm so sorry, where she was in support of regulation. It's in a full email that she sent. She was in
please send
support of,
that to me.
okay,
Send that to me because it
okay.
will be helpful because it will show her colleagues about, her metamorphosis here wasn't driven by, the facts. It was driven by some political ambition that she's got.
A-
So
Amen. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Well,
that is
thank
me.
you for
Okay.
hearing me, Mac. I appreciate everything that you're doing. I'm on your side and I appreciate everything. My words come out wrong sometimes.
No,
So,
no problem. No problem.
like I said, I'm just a kratom consumer. That's all I am. I'm not a politician. I took my daughter today with us so she could learn about this. And I've been teaching her what I've learned. I didn't know about like committee and house, and I didn't know how it worked, and now I do. And I am super frustrated and I'm taking it to the polls. And I just appreciate you, Mac.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes.
Let's go to some of the others who raised their hands. Deborah.
Hi, I was with Kelly today at the hearing in Tennessee, and I was so proud of her. She gave such a wonderful testimony, and I saw their faces, and she did have an impact. She did. And so, and I was really, I was very impressed by her testimony because she shows what a transformation she made. Are you there?
I am. Yes, we're
Oh,
listening.
okay. But the thing I wanted to say also is thank you, Mac, for all that you do. We appreciate you. But it was a little disheartening today in Tennessee. I don't think any of us really realized all the backroom deals and back scratching and things that go on in politics. It was a little disheartening.
And it can be. That's the reality of what the sort of the arena that we're working in. And we have to sometimes play by the unfair rules. But I can tell you that I've seen it over and over again that even though it doesn't appear to have an impact, it does. And we're going to capitalize on that everywhere we can. But thank you for being there today. And like I say, I'm going to go back and watch the hearing. I'll try to see if I can get it on the plane on the way home tonight and pull it up and watch it. But thank you for all you do. So let's go, Russell.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay, so I would just like to give my testimony because when people like will say like kratom is like super addicting, and I just tell people it's no more addicting than caffeine because I used to drink like 2 to 4 energy drinks like a day, and now I'm just taking like like maybe 4 to 8 kratom like a day, and I figured that's a lot healthier than drinking all these energy drinks a day. So like when people say it's like super addicting, I'm like it's no more addicting than like like coffee, and I always put it like in the same category as caffeine as far as addiction potential is concerned.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And, too often these anti-kratom advocates, well, not too often, they consistently go over their skis with making claims that are not true. And we've tried diligently on the kratom side to make sure that we adhere to what the scientific evidence proves. And that has served us magnificently over the years. And when I was testifying in Arizona here today. Michelle Ross was there from Seven Hope Alliance, and her normal testimony is, "Oh, well, 7OH was tested twice in 2016 and then again in 2018, and it was found not to be schedulable." Well, she's talking about the trace amounts of 7OH that exist in the plant itself, and she deceives. And I'm telling you, the 7OH people are the great deceivers. She deceives those legislators when she says that into thinking, oh, 7OH is okay. It is not. And then she has the audacity to sit and say that, you should only, that this is a turf war between kratom manufacturers and 7OH manufacturers. It is a safety war. And it is about a marketplace that was deceived by the 7OH manufacturers when they first came onto the marketplace, and they were selling their products as kratom, and some of them still do. They call them advanced kratom alkaloids, and they deceive consumers. And I'm telling you, my newest crusade is the 7OH con job that they not only put over on consumers, but what they also are trying to do now with legislators. So obviously we got some work to do there, but I'm in for the fight. Obviously, Justin, you're up.
Hey Mac, how's it going? I was just here looking. I had found a health study about how withdrawal from kratom is far less than something like morphine, and I was just trying to look it up. I just wanted to mention that the search results. I mean, there is some serious yellow journalism going on here with the Mayo Clinic, with a lot of these entities that really are pushing it, as I'm reading it right now, to be something it's not. So I just wanted to let you know. Sure, you're aware, but
Well, send me. Don't make that assumption. I may not be. Send me that article. That'd be great.
okay.
On the Mayo Clinic, you're dead right. The Mayo Clinic repeats what the FDA says, and it's not because they think the FDA is the be all to end all. It's because they have a financial agreement to help them with the dissemination of health information, and between the Yale University and the Mayo Clinic and FDA, I think their contract was millions and millions of dollars to do this. So I heard Senator Mike McKell in Utah, who was this anti-kratom advocate who wanted to ban all kratom, say on a radio interview, well, the Mayo Clinic's done some really good research on kratom.
Huh.
And it's not true. They haven't spent a penny on it. And when I called them out on it, then he went to his Senate colleagues and said, oh, well, Mac Haddow's lying about the Mayo Clinic. What are they talking about? There's not a single penny of research that the Mayo Clinic's done on kratom in any way. So, I mean, it's really crazy. But
That's
thank
awesome.
you. And send that article to me. That would be great.
Sure.
Good. So anybody else have their hand up? Okay, it looks like Ron Hilton.
Hey Mac, how you doing?
Good. Well, I'm trying
Good,
to.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking my call here. So listen, man, listen. I have nothing but positive things to say about you guys for the most part. I live in Tennessee, and last week, the presenters you guys had at that House hearing were phenomenal. I mean,
Good.
to hear them talk scientifically about related to kratom, and then to hear the other side talk, about the autopsy, which was mostly lies, and the others there with them talk. I mean, and then the vote we got, it's just outrageous to me that, they're just flatly ignoring the science. And I did want to share, my wife actually contacted Senator Gardenhire's office. And his aide, and she explained everything. Says, my husband needs this. He's been taking it for 12 years every day for neuropathy. She says, we'll have to sell our house and leave. And she says, and this is the aide. She says, well, I should guess you should just sell your house and leave.
Oh my goodness.
And, I just want to say a couple more things. One, if you're in Tennessee, I know you work. Probably it's hard to get there, but we got to get there. My wife took a day off to go. I'm recovering from surgery, but I'm hoping to go next week. So we need everybody. I mean, it's obviously very serious. And I did want to ask Mac a couple things. One, why is it that we don't really organize any protests anymore, especially in situations like this where it seems to be so dire? And I was also going to ask too, I know you've been talking about the back and forth you were having with Robin and the advocates not engaging, but to me, a little bit of fair criticism, unless you're on the email list for the AKA, or unless you're in the Discord or the Reddit or Facebook, you may not even hear about this ban except for on the news. And for the layperson who has no experience contacting government, and it does seem rather intimidating, they probably don't seek this stuff out, and just assume that there's nothing they can do. And I wish we had a better outreach to the public, I guess is the best way to put it. I do feel, and the advocates we have are phenomenal, but I feel like as many people as we have taken Kratom, and if there are that many people using it to, actually live their life pain free, then we should be getting a lot more. And so, I just want to leave that there and just encourage everybody to be involved, man, because it's got to be you. And trust me, I hate this stuff. So that's
Well,
it, Mac. Thank you. I'll listen.
thank you. Thank you for the comments. And just so you know, my wife sent me we're on this hunt for houses where we're going to retire. And I may never retire, but she sent me this, just so you know, this house in, let me pull it up. It's in Arrington. Is it Arrington, Tennessee? She said it's just outside of Nashville. And it's on Potter's Union Way. I think she said it was in Arrington, but anyway, so I may be a fellow resident of Tennessee here in the next couple of years. Uh, the issue about organizing more rallies and that sort of thing, it's frankly it's a resource issue. We this year we are active in having to hire lobbyists in over 30 states. We didn't expect to have that many. We have a federal lobbying team. The experts that we have to work with, and the experts you referenced that were there at the hearing, they don't work for free. Now, we can't influence in any way what their conclusions are on their scientific research, but when they travel and when they take the time to be at a hearing and spend all day waiting for a chance to testify, and then typically have to stay over another night. These are expensive, and we pay for their time on an hour basis. I can tell you that that's a significant part of our problem. We just don't have the financial resources in order to do the things that you just described. We would like to do more. Now, I think that we can do this federal rally, a fly-in day to the Capitol next month, and that's obviously something we can put some resources into to organize and help it. But we're going to have to get the advocates to get there on their own, meaning hopefully get help from friends, family, your network, social sphere, some of the vendors. And we're going to do all we can to help facilitate that. But this is a real problem, and I wish we had more people, more resources to do this as we go forward here. But I appreciate your comments and recommendations. I think you're dead on, and we're going to try to do better. And if you live close to Arrington or whatever that is, I think I might end up seeing you sometime soon. Stephen, you're up.
Hi, Mac. I just wanted to say I appreciate all you guys do. One thing I've observed is that advocates are getting really good, I would say, at monitoring bills. But a lot of them don't know what to do in the meantime. So they see a bill go from nowhere to committee, and then the hearing might be months away, and in the meantime they don't really know, like, should I be, as soon as it hits the committee, should I be emailing all the members, should I be emailing the chairperson? I something almost like, I think, like, in the military you have, general orders, like when you don't have orders, what is it you're supposed to do? Could you give any advice about what, absent any other specific instruction, what an advocate should do, as a bill moves through the committee process and so on and so forth?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, being authentic and just telling your story about Kratom is the most important thing rather than a kind of a scripted thing. Although, we may have to help some people, but I think you've touched on something that we can do better here. And that is when we send out an alert, have a at least some instruction that not that the bill is up one way or another, but what you should do about it. And I think that's a fair evaluation and criticism of what we haven't been doing. And let me look at how we can, without making it impossible for our staff, add that kind of texture when it's appropriate. We may not know. I mean, we get a notice. We have a software program that scrapes the internet for all of these bill notices, and it may be that we see them sometimes when they're just eminent on us, and sometimes they're just sitting there. They just got filed, and so there's no action needs to be done at that point. We can do better at this, and I'm gonna work on that and see if our team can come up with a good way that we can be more informative, as you say, under the general orders. This is what you need to do now, rather than just saying here it is, because one may be critical and we're not giving it that priority, then it's one that may just be just having been filed and there's nothing to do yet. So great point. I can tell you one of the things that, and this will sound nuts, but it's true. Sometimes I get a day's notice on a hearing, and I might be in California and I've got to be in Minnesota the next day to get that hearing, and I didn't know it. And so I've gotten to the point where I book flights. I always book them as being refundable, even though it's more expensive, because I save money in the long run, because if I have to cancel and then start moving around to other states. But I'll bet this year's been particularly bad on that score, that I started one trip and I've ended up on probably 60 to 70% of the trips having to change while I'm gone to go to another hearing that got called. And this is just the way the legislative process works. These legislators don't care. They just tee up a bill and they say, let's put it on for Wednesday, and it happens to be Monday. And then they put it up on Tuesday morning, and boom, you've got those issues. So, but you raise a great point. I think we can do better, and I'm going to look at that on how we can do that. I think Jordan is up next.
Mac, how's it going?
Well, I'm hanging in. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm all right. I'm tired, man. Still a lot going on, a lot going on.
Yeah.
Quick thing. I know when we talked in Tennessee, I told you about like our list for like the text messaging and everything like that. And we're getting so many successes with that. Like people are like, oh my God, thank you, thank you, thank you. Like I had no idea this was going on. Because I noticed a lot of people don't open their emails like they used to. I know it's super expensive, at least for us. I mean, we're spending, gosh, over probably $1,500 a month just sending these text messages out to advocates. Has the AKA ever thought of maybe doing like a text messaging thing? Or maybe because you have so many people, it'd be way too expensive? Because I just know that we get like a way higher success rate of people actually reaching back out to us via text.
Yeah, so I forgot to pass this along to Mark in our office and to call you. So I
Okay,
apologize for that.
it's
But
okay.
Mark will call you on this. And I know we've discussed doing this before, because some of the software programs allow us to do texting. We do it now. Now, whether we can expand that in some way, we'll figure it out. But I'll have someone call you from the office, and we'll figure out if there's a better way to do this, because it is more expensive. There's no question about that. But if the payoff is that we get more responsible, I know that of course the acquisition of the cell number is important,
Hmm.
and that's why we do some texting, but we may not have a highly populated cell phone number list. I don't know. So I'm going to have someone reach out to you and talk about that.
Okay, yeah, because I just know, like 99% of people, as soon as they get a text message, they see it, but a lot of us miss, stuff that goes to our inboxes. And also too, like I might be a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, so please just tell me if I'm being crazy. The fact that so many people flew out to Tennessee, like I'm flying out from Tennessee, Missy flying from Colorado, and the fact that we had to sign these witness things, do you think that had any correlation of them like skipping kratom for that day, or you think it was just the legislative process basically because so many people showed up?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. I think more it's the legislative process because these chairmen of the committees, they have, an agenda, and if they see that there's, 50 witnesses signed up, they're going to defer that and try to do it another day. You and I both know what happens. Saw it happen in Tennessee. You get there and they cancel the hearing, or
Exactly.
they limit it so that you can't talk. I mean, that's just part of the process. It's not great, but we'll do the best we can. But we'll reach out to you. Maybe Stephanie from our office will call you, Jordan, and we'll figure out how we
Okay.
can coordinate, whether we can do it better on texting. We may be maxing out on it. I don't know,
Okay.
because I'm not into that, but in that part of it. But we'll find out.
Please do. Thank you so
Hey,
much.
thanks for all you do. I know you're an extraordinary advocate, and the work that you do with your documentary and everything is just fabulous. So thank you for your efforts.
Yeah, hopefully we get that done in the next year or so. I have to keep doing like little chunks because it's very expensive, but I'm getting it done. I'll get it done eventually. Hopefully next year.
All right,
All
Brad,
right.
thank you.
Thanks.
So is there anyone else that we have? I think well, let's see. I've got Dawn. We'll let you be the last voice, so make it good.
Okay. I am so sorry. I think I sort of misspoke. I just got two quick things. I didn't mean like a template to, I know the stories are actually more important. I meant like numbers and things like that, so we don't get those kind of type of things confused. If we could get the actual, if we're gonna try to go that route, like we need the accurate information. And the other thing I wanted to let you know, just in case you didn't know, I totally agree with you about the recovery centers because I recently was helping someone, a family member, as a matter of fact, try to get in somewhere because she had a problem with 7OH. And oh my gosh, I was getting solicited. Like I remember back a few years ago when I was helping friends, I've been a recovery coach. Um, try to get in there, they had to wait. There were, no beds, and they were like, everybody was calling me. I called all over Tennessee, and the ones that didn't take insurance wanted like $20,000, and but we finally found one. And my point is, the only thing that came up when they tested her for stuff was like way over the alcohol limit, and they said she should have been blackout drunk, and the only thing she took was a 7OH, and they had no idea how to treat it. She stayed 2 days. She was suffering so bad, she left. And I had to help her myself with putting her on pure leaf kratom. So I just wanted to let you know in case you didn't, because I know there's not a lot of information about the 7OH, but I wanted to jump through the screen when that recovery guy in Tennessee was on there, and I was like, oh, I wish I could have got there because I had so much I want to say, but
Yeah, I hear you, and it's a good point about giving some detailed information on the numbers rather
Mhm.
than the story. I think it's a great point and is well taken. I thank you. And you're absolutely right about access to beds. The National Institutes on Drug Abuse director, Nora Volko, and I had a conversation after our last congressional briefing where she was a panelist, and she told me that some of the problems that we run into that people don't understand in the kratom community, I'm sorry, in the opioid addiction community, she said that it's access to treatment beds. And so it's easy to sit and say, oh, well, this is the solution. She said, but there are a couple of different classes of people that need assistance but don't seek it. One is because of the stigma that's attached to it. If you're a professional and you're in a job, you don't want to say you're going into substance abuse treatment, even though you need it and it's desperately needed. And she said, then even if you need it and you can access it, there aren't any beds available, particularly in rural areas. And she said, and even in urban areas, you get people that need treatment, want to get into treatment, and they can't afford it because it's so expensive. And so all of those things cumulatively, in her mind, put kratom in the range of being a very effective harm reduction tool. And the way she characterized it to me was, why not let people have access to a product that's not killing them, opioids
Mhm.
too, and let them try to find their way to harm reduction using a natural plant that, obviously she believes, and she's right, that natural doesn't mean safe, but it's not deadly. And that was her point. So I think it's a very interesting perspective to have for all of these people to climb up on their soapboxes and say, well, this is the solution. Sometimes a harm reduction tool that's easy to have access to, simply to provide it, can be a very effective tool. And that's what I think in many cases is the saving grace that Kratom provides in people's lives that are really in that very difficult circumstance of being addicted on opioids and need help and other illicit drugs. So I thank you for bringing that to our attention. I think it's an important part. We're going to close it off there. I kept you guys a long time. I appreciate, as I said earlier, everything that you do, even those that aren't great fans of what we do. We think you have an equal seat at the table. That will always be the case with me and with the AKA. It's not going to be closed off because we don't agree with one another. Open, honest dialogues are important because we learn from one another. And I've learned tonight some things that I'm going to implement that I think were excellent suggestions by the people that made comments. So thank you for that. This will be put up on our YouTube channel, and you'll have access to it. And we encourage everyone to circulate it. I know that our good friends Misty Brown and her team are live streaming it. And if there is a podcast platform that people should reach out to, it's Misty's group. I've never met a more fun, more honest advocate in my life than Misty. And she's got a podcast that's up there too. So go watch it. Misty, you want to tell us what the URL to it is or how they can find it? Because I can't remember offhand. I don't know if Misty's still on. So Misty, you there? There you are.
Well, it's about time you unmuted me. I had my hand up for a while, buddy.
Well, I'm not controlling it. There are other people behind it that must not like you.
I don't have a podcast. Jen and we just live stream all the hearings and all that stuff. So it's either on, her YouTube channel, which is Winifred Jenkins, or I'm going to say it, Mac. It's my YouTube channel. It's called The T Bish.
I don't understand that at all. T Bish.
Since I have you on here, I wanted to answer some of the questions about the chain of command that we have. We already have a chain of command chain going on where you guys do the web squeegee, the web scrubby thing. You guys do that. And then that info gets sent to Laura Rodney Smith. And then Laura Rodney Smith breaks it down with all the emails that she collects. And then we send out notices for what people need to do next. These are for the locality hearings because we have to heavily, guard that because of KDA and all these other all these other people that like to piggyback off of our advocacy. So any locality hearings that pop up, we send those emails out. So I'm gonna give out Laura's email address, okay?
Yes.
Okay. Laura@plantsandherbals.org. Send your name, city, and state to that email address. And then we will put you in the list. We'll categorize you.
So you raised an interesting point that I've received a lot of criticism about on my personal email about why we share information that we know is going to be used by other groups to claim that they're the ones who are gathering the information and circulating the notices to the meeting. And my answer to that has been consistent, and that is I want every advocate there. I don't care how they get there. And I know it's frustrating when you get a group that wants to say, oh, well, we're the advocacy group that you should be listening to. Who cares? And I know Robin Graham with her nonsense. She's got this new group and she's trying to hustle money, and that's too bad because it draws resources away from those that really can effectively use the money and actually show up at these hearings, which is an interesting thought in and of itself. But I don't care, and so in that sense, I want as much information out there to the advocacy community in whatever channel that it gets to them so that we have the maximum number of people that show up. And again, I know it's stolen valor in some cases, but Misty, the job you do, what Laura Romney does, what the AKA team does that are actually staffing behind the scenes, fabulous work. And we just need to keep building on it and building on it. And where we stumble and fail, whether it's our fault or the fault of others, we're going to keep in this fight and we're going to keep fighting all the way through. So I appreciate all of you. Misty, thank you.
Okay, I have another question too. Someone wants to know, do you need warm bodies in DC tomorrow?
We do not. This is going to be a perfunctory hearing. They've got the witnesses set. There's nothing, you can watch it, but there's nothing that is of importance for an advocate to be there.
Okay, thank you for everything that you're doing.
All right, thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night, and hopefully you'll hear back from us by the end of the week if we can get the day or the date set for the room for the congressional briefing, and we'll build the fly-in day around that. Hopefully by Friday you'll know that. Thanks so much to everybody.